Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Go outside and take a look. It's getting so late. Why hasn't the wedding procession arrived yet? My parents and relatives were in a state of panic. They kept walking to the edge of the village, straining their necks, looking down the road, waiting and worrying. We waited for hours. Eventually, several groups were sent to the neighboring village to ask around near the Carter family's home. Finally, the truth was confirmed. The Carters had backed out of the wedding. My father was so furious. He slammed the table and glared, shouting that they had gone too far. This was clearly a deliberate insult to our family. Right there and then, he found the matchmaker and led a group to the Carters' home to demand an explanation. But when they arrived, the gates were shut tight, and no one responded. My parents came home both physically exhausted and emotionally devastated. That very night, they both fell ill. By the time I was reborn into this moment, I had arrived a bit too late. Seeing my parents lying weak in bed, worrying about me, I felt nothing but joy. In my previous life, I married into the Carter family with the dowry my parents had carefully prepared. I was dutiful to my in-laws, affectionate toward my sister-in-law, Amanda, and managed all the social responsibilities in the family. When Amanda Carter planned to study abroad in 2015, it was me who sold a courtyard house under my name to barely scrape together the tuition for her. Ryan Carter, my husband, climbed the career ladder with the support of my generous dowry. Later, he seized a golden opportunity and shot to success. The Carter family, once nobodies from a mountain village, suddenly became part of the emerging elite in Northville. As their fortunes rose, everyone praised me as the woman who brought wealth to their household. But Ryan was never content. He never accepted me. The second half of our marriage fell apart under the weight of his constant yelling and complaints. "Rachel, I really regret marrying you," he screamed. "You deliberately lent Ethan money, so he could make you get an abortion. You ruined her life." By that time, he had already brought Taniru back from overseas. The two of them appeared together at public events like a couple, acting intimate and loving, completely disregarding my dignity as his wife. My once kind mother-in-law and considerate sister-in-law would always try to comfort me, saying, "Rachel, you need to be more understanding. The times have changed. What wealthy man doesn't have multiple women these days? The fact that my son is still staying with you, the wife who supported him during hard times, is already a blessing." Even my own son stood on the opposite side, confronting me directly. "Mom, can't you just be satisfied? Iru can't have kids. She's not going to fight you for inheritance. She just wants a title. What's the big deal? Go ask around. Which rich family doesn't have a few illegitimate children? With Auntie Iru around, Dad has no energy to mess around and have more kids with anyone else. What more do you want? Do you even know how hard it is for me to juggle things between Grandpa, Grandma, and Aunt Amanda? I didn't even know what I was still dissatisfied about. All I knew was that every time my aging parents saw news about Ryan's scandals, they were heartbroken. My father, a retired soldier who believed men should bleed but never cry, used to cry in secret behind my mother's back during the quiet of night. He passed away with his eyes still open. That one failed marriage tore apart the people closest to me. All the glamour and luxury I had in front of others was nothing but a robe of splendor crawling with lice. No one saw the bitterness and blood behind my smile. So when I was reborn and found myself back at this point in time while everyone else was furious and ashamed over the runaway groom, I alone felt thankful. Thankful that it wasn't too late. While my parents were organizing a group to confront the Carters, I went alone to the marriage registration office in town and retrieved the marriage certificate that hadn't yet been stamped. In my previous life, I had forgotten to bring the stamped certificate on the wedding day. A kind woman working at the office had smiled and said gently, "Just leave it here. When you get the certificate stamped, bring it back and I'll complete it for you. That way you won't have to go back and forth." I handed her a piece of milk candy I had brought in my pocket, and she returned the unstamped marriage certificate to me. "Thank you," I said as I bowed deeply, tears rolling down my face. On the ride home, we passed a remote alley where a familiar figure suddenly caught my eye. It was Ryan holding Tangiru tightly in his arms, looking ecstatic. "Iru, This time I won't let you face it alone. I'll take responsibility as the father." She blushed shyly, glowing with affection. But when Tang Yiru's eyes accidentally met mine, she panicked. I turned away coldly, no longer paying attention to the Ryan Carter of my past. He always believed that the baby Yiru carried was his. Only she and I knew the truth. It wasn't. The child belonged to her university professor, a graceful, elegant man who was already married. The two of them fell in love at first sight, and their forbidden relationship soon became obsessive and intoxicating. But later, the man chose ambition over love and left the country with his wife. He disappeared without a word, abandoning her completely. Tengu was devastated. When she discovered she was pregnant, she panicked. She turned her sights to her loyal fallback option, Ryan Carter. She got him drunk, hoping to trick him into sleeping with her and make it seem like the baby was his, but I walked in on it and stopped her in time. Tang Yiru fell to her knees in front of me, sobbing and begging for mercy. "Rachel, I'm begging you. Please lend me some money. I'll get rid of the baby. I'll use Ryan's classmate's name to check in at the clinic. I swear no one will ever know." I'm not sure what I was thinking at that moment. Maybe it was a sense of shared womanhood. Maybe I just pitied her for falling in love with the wrong man. In any case, I kept the secret. When Ryan sobered up, he thought he just had a one-night stand with his long-lost first love. And when he later found out that Tang Yiru had had an abortion and could no longer have children, he was only heartbroken for a few days before accepting the reality. Back then, he had just joined his department and was relying on Tang Yiru's network of connections. He and I started an official romantic relationship in secret. Later, he came to resent me deeply, accusing me of using power to oppress him. He buried the grudge and hated me with every fiber of his being. That's why in public he spared no effort in humiliating me. There was never a winner between the three of us. Now that we've all gone our separate ways, I suppose things have finally returned to their rightful place. After Ryan ran away from the wedding, my dad was riddled with guilt. Originally, there were two potential suitors lined up. He had favored Ryan, saying that Ryan was someone destined for greatness, that his potential was limitless. He was right about Ryan's future achievements in my previous life. But even so, I didn't want him anymore. I thought it over carefully. In this world, women are still expected to get married. Even those strong, independent women who stay single for decades are constantly subjected to gossip and judgment. Let alone now. Since I had to marry someone, I'd rather pick the safest, most dependable option. When I told my dad I wanted to marry Sterling, he was completely stunned. "Sweetheart, let's really think this through. There's no need to tie yourself down to just these two men. I can help you meet other people." But I shook my head firmly. "Dad, it's him. Just ask him if he's willing to marry me." Thinking about my past life, I wasn't entirely sure. He should be willing, I thought. Back then, when Sterling found out I was getting married, he rushed over, drenched in sweat, to see me. But when he saw me standing there in my red wedding dress, he turned and left silently. Afterward, I received a transfer of money every year along with all kinds of necessities, all sent from the same place. Though the specific address had been removed, I checked. It was the garrison where Sterling had once been stationed. 10 years later, everything stopped. I thought maybe he had finally moved on, started a family. I was sincerely happy for him. It wasn't until decades later that I learned the truth. He had died in the line of duty. His name was engraved on a tombstone at the Martyrs Memorial Cemetery. Next to it, a line of small lettering read, "My eternal love, Rachel." Some people cast me aside like worthless glass. Others used every last breath of their short lives to love me fully. I looked up at the man sitting stiffly across from me. In my past life, this was the day he turned and walked away in silence. In this life, for some reason, he had stood outside my house, watching me quietly all day. "Sterling, looks like today is your unlucky day. I want to get married, and you're still single, so guess it's you and me." He broke into a grin, his sharp features softening with a warmth I hadn't seen before. Not unlucky at all. I couldn't be happier. To escape the people and places that disgusted me, my parents and I moved straight into the courtyard house in Northville. It had been my mother's dowry, untouched ever since she got it. In my past life, When Amanda Carter insisted on studying abroad, Ryan had strongly objected, his face dark with disapproval. My mother-in-law cried under the covers, and the house was filled with constant arguments and tension. Amanda cried and pleaded with me. Rachel, can you help me? Just 300,000 yuan is enough. I know you can figure something out, but what could I do? Ryan played both good cop and bad cop, pushing me to sell the house, but never saying it outright. Even in the 90s, if word got out that a daughter-in-law's dowry was being sucked dry by her in-laws, it wouldn't sound good. That fully preserved courtyard house was eventually sold for a little over 600,000 yuan. Amanda used 300,000 for her studies abroad, and Ryan took the rest to expand his business network. Years later, when I tried to buy it back, the price had become astronomical. Even if Ryan had tried to buy it back, he would have had to consider whether it was worth the cost. And to him, anything for me was never worth it. Now, that same courtyard had been transferred into my name by my mother. It was decorated in bright red, filled with festive joy. Sterling and I had received our marriage certificate, and in front of our families, we were formally declared husband and wife. Both sets of parents were in tears. What came unexpectedly was that right after the wedding ceremony, Sterling received an emergency assignment. He was full of regret, only able to return in time for our wedding night. Before leaving, he handed over everything he owned to me and gave me instruction after instruction, reminding me about every little thing. Watching his anxious eyes and furrowed brows, I couldn't help but smile softly. I stood on my toes, gently kissed him, then pulled back. I'll wait for you to come home. Sterling wrapped one strong arm around my waist, his voice steady. Okay. I had made up my mind to give Sterling all of my loyalty and trust in this life. I would be better than the person I was before, more calm, more at peace. What I didn't expect was that this Sterling was nothing like the silent, reserved man I remembered from my past life. Back then, the few times I saw him, he barely spoke. Other than his deep, dark eyes, occasionally flickering with emotion, I never sensed anything else from him. I had always thought he needed a steady, composed, graceful woman as a wife, and I truly believed no one could play that role better than me. But could someone explain to me what was going on with this fiery, bold and clingy man? Ever since Sterling returned from his mission, I basically hadn't gotten out of bed for a week. When things got too intense, I kicked him in frustration, only for him to catch my leg, place it over his shoulder, and take things even further. After we got married, my parents and in-laws moved in with us. My mom and mother-in-law got along wonderfully. They even bought neighboring houses next to our courtyard. Every day, the four of them played chess, knitted, and cooked together. They never interfered with our lives, only watched over us quietly and lovingly. Lately, there had been a very clear change in the food on our dinner table. Stir-fried eggs with chives, spicy pork kidney stir-fry, goji berry chicken soup. My face turned redder every day, and I kept my head lower and lower. But Sterling, thick-skinned as ever, was still in the mood to critique the food. Mom, the soup's a bit salty today. Dad, that fish you caught tastes a little muddy. Next time, keep it in clean water for a couple of days before cooking. No matter what he said, both parents just nodded and agreed happily. Sterling, smug and cheeky, leaned over and whispered, "Thanks to you, I can ask for anything. If I wanted the jade rabbit from the sky, I bet Dad would figure out a way to catch it and let me taste if it's salty or sweet." They had long resigned themselves to the idea that I'd stay single for life. I shyly pinched Sterling's waist, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned his face closer. "Sweetheart, how about a few more kisses right here?" he teased. "Every time I go on a mission, I rely on these feelings to keep going." While I waited peacefully at home, I received his care packages and letters at the same time every month. Dried wildflowers from the mountains, seashells from the beach, stunning scenic photographs, and letters overflowing with love. "Rachel, the flowers blooming on the mountain aren't as beautiful as you. Rachel," I whispered. "I love you into a conch shell. Can you hear my voice, Rachel? Even the clouds in the sky look like your silhouette. I miss you so much, Rachel. I love you." Sterling had every part of my life arranged so carefully and securely that I no longer needed to run around managing the household like I did in my previous life. I didn't have to worry about groceries for 5 people, Amanda's grades, or what herbal medicine my mother-in-law had to drink each day. I didn't have to get up early to serve anyone or stay up late to clean up after others. Just like my maternal grandmother, I had a pair of skillful hands. No matter how intricate the pattern or technique, I could understand it at a glance and reproduce it exactly. In my past life, Ryan's boss, a cheerful, blunt older woman, loved trendy clothes she saw in magazines from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Ryan had asked me to help him out. I had just finished my postpartum confinement when I dragged my exhausted body to make her exact copies of the styles she liked. Every year, I made tailored outfits based on that woman's tastes, never once disappointing her. Over the decades that followed, whenever Ryan faced any difficulties, that same senior woman would step in and solve them. Before I even had a chance to ask, she protected his business empire, clearing every obstacle in his path. Later, after she retired, Ryan never visited her again. Not a single phone call. When I brought her a newly made coat, that legendary doctor, now an elderly woman, was lying in a rocking chair outside. She looked at me, smiling, and sighed. "Rachel, you're so honest and sincere. What are you going to do in the future?" Thinking about all the good Sterling had done for me, I decided I needed to return the favor, at least a little. I found out that Sterling's commanding officer's mother, a graceful old lady, had a special love for the history of Suzhou and Hangzhou Chip Pao. I seized one of the rare opportunities we had to meet and worked tirelessly, sleeplessly to handcraft a few pieces for her. When I pulled out the garments to show them, Sterling's eyes turned red with emotion. His lips pressed tight as he tried to hold it in. He said, "Sweetheart, I'll earn my own future. I married you to give you happiness. Believe me, I can do this. You just focus on what you want to do. If making clothes is your passion or your career, I'll support you. Just don't do it for me. That should never be a burden for you." Looking at his warm, vibrant face now and remembering that solemn, grieving photo on his tombstone in my past life, I couldn't find the words. My heart was overflowing with love, but all I could do when I opened my mouth was gag and heave. I was pregnant. The news hit Sterling and both our families like a tidal wave. Shocking, dizzying, but full of joy. My in-laws went to our ancestral home in the countryside that very night to kneel before our ancestors and give thanks. "Thank you for blessing this unfilled grandson. Sterling, he's finally done something useful." Before heading back to base, Sterling, always shameless, bragged loudly, "Old man, you're the one who should be kneeling. Without my wife, our family line would have ended right here." Before he could finish, my mother-in-law smacked him out the door with a feather duster. Sterling returned to his post reluctantly. Far from distancing themselves, my in-laws threw themselves into taking care of me. When they heard that free-range eggs from the countryside were more nutritious than store-bought ones, they even rode with my mom all the way back to the village to buy some. That evening, before they even stepped through the door, I could hear my dad's booming voice from outside. "Goddamn that little bastard. I'll kill him. First he ran away from the wedding and humiliated us. Now he's got the nerve to ruin Rachel's reputation too. He's looking for death. Honey, get out of the way." While calming down my furious father, my mom explained the whole story to me. They had run into Ryan's mother while passing through his village. Back when the Carters ghosted us and fled town, they'd done everything to disgrace us. And now that woman had the audacity to ask why I hadn't brought medicine for Ryan lately. She said his medication had run out. "Good thing you didn't marry him," Mom fumed. "That whole family's rotten. His little sister's in college now, right? She even had the nerve to ask why you didn't transfer money last month. A family of ungrateful snakes." Ryan used to seem like a quiet one, but who knew his family would turn out to be this shameless? Mom sighed after a sip of water. "Your mother-in-law overheard everything. She was holding a basket of eggs and didn't say anything. But I'm worried they might feel awkward about it. We never hid what happened before, but hearing that their daughter-in-law was left at the altar can't sit well with them. If your mother-in-law speaks to you harshly these days, please just bear with it. All right. Your dad and I can tell. Sterling's a good man. This will pass." Dad got even angrier. Why should she have to endure anything? My daughter didn't do anything wrong. Worst case, she divorces him. I'll take care of her and the baby myself. After that, neither of them said another word. The atmosphere turned heavy. I felt uneasy. Would my mother-in-law tell Sterling what she'd heard? If she did, would he think I married him because I had no other choice? Would he be angry? Probably. With those worries weighing me down, I tossed and turned all night. When I finally woke the next morning, I noticed my mother-in-law hadn't made breakfast or sent over any food. I wasn't sure if I felt disappointed or relieved. It was hard to say. What struck me as odd was that my parents weren't home either. Before I could collect my thoughts from all the what-ifs swirling in my head, I heard a loud commotion outside the door. This time, we're letting them off easy. But if they start running their mouths again, I'll break that boy's damn legs. Uncle, we're coming with you. Sterling's not home right now. He left Rachel in our care. If we can't even handle this, what kind of sister am I? Rachel is such a good person. And that witch had the nerve to spread rumors about her. If she doesn't die from anger, it's a miracle. Next time I see that gossiping daughter of theirs, I'm going to rip her mouth wide open. Oh no, I forgot to make Rachel's meal. What if she goes hungry? All your fault. I told you we should have come right back after buying those eggs. Where's the hen and the eggs I bought? Who's holding them? Right here, Auntie. The eggs are perfectly fine. Not a single one broken. I rushed to hug my mother-in-law tightly. She later explained that she hadn't taken anything that woman said to heart. The reason she didn't talk back was that she didn't want to drop the eggs in the basket. It's hard for hens to lay eggs in the winter, and she'd gone door to door just to gather enough to nourish me. The moment she brought the eggs home, she told my father-in-law and our relatives, and they all gathered to confront the Carters and reclaim our dignity. They tore through the Carter household, smashed furniture, shattered doors, and reported the matter to both the local police and village chief. Ryan's mother finally admitted that the things she'd said, that Rachel had already slept with my son, were all lies made up on the spot. My mother-in-law, a retired schoolteacher, completely abandoned her usual elegance. She grabbed Ryan's mother by the collar and slapped her across the face again and again, shouting with each hit, "Rachel is such a good child. Your son didn't know how to treasure her. If I ever hear you slandering her name again, I'll tear your mouth apart myself." She shoved a few $100 bills into my hand. "This is your reputation compensation from that old hag." And this, she handed me a signed apology letter as her guarantee. She was crying her eyes out when the police showed up, saying she must have been possessed. "Don't be afraid, Rachel," she said. "Sterling may not be home, but your dad and I will protect you." When my parents heard the news, they rushed over, shocked and filled with regret. They scolded my in-laws, asking why they hadn't taken them along too. But my mother-in-law waved them off proudly. "This is our child. We'll handle our own business." The next time I saw Ryan Carter and Tanguru was 5 years later on the streets of Shaney City. It was clear Ryan had taken full advantage of his second chance at life. He was thriving. The two of them wore the latest fashion and drove a sleek car. When they saw me waiting for the bus by the curb, I could practically feel the superiority radiating off them. Ryan's face tightened as he sneered. "Rachel, I just sent out a package 3 days ago, and now you're already here. You've been following me, haven't you?" Without giving me a chance to reply, he tossed a business card my way. "Enough. I'm not in the mood. Come to this address tonight. I've got something for you to do." Tanguru's eyes flickered. She bit her lip and shot me a bitter glare. Before I could say anything, they got into their car and drove off. A few minutes later, little son arrived, drenched in sweat, breaking hard. "Sis, there was an urgent issue in the company. Sorry, am I late?" I waved him off with a smile. "I just got here too. Perfect timing. Let's go." Right before getting into the car, I casually tossed Ryan's business card into a nearby trash can. "For years ago, I gave birth to my daughter, Willa. Sterling received orders to transfer to Shenshire, thousands of miles away. My parents and in-laws couldn't bear to part with their granddaughter, nor did they want to see Sterling and me living apart. Everyone was torn, but I wasn't worried. While raising Willa, I enrolled in college and started a degree in medicine. This year, Willa started preschool and made her own little group of friends. She'd been spoiled absolutely rotten by all 4 grandparents, and had grown so used to the Northville climate that she refused to leave with me. After asking for her opinion, Sterling and I decided to let her stay with our parents. Meanwhile, I brought my acceptance letter to Shropshire and moved there to reunite with him. Maybe what I went through in my past life had affected me more deeply than I realized. Even though I still loved crafting with my hands, I couldn't bring myself to pick up a pair of scissors or a sewing needle. Just the thought of it made me feel tense. Gradually, I started to develop a real interest in medicine. Sterling encouraged me from the heart. He said, "Let's stick to your gift. If you can't hold a sewing needle, hold a scalpel instead. Whatever you want to do, I'll support you." Once I received my degree, I applied to transfer with the military to Shropshire and started working at the base hospital. Today was my first official day reporting for duty, and I never expected to run into someone I'd rather never see again. In a city this big, what were the chances? But I didn't take Ryan Carter's words to heart. Neither he nor Tang Iru had the power to stir any emotion in me now. So Sterling and I balanced our work and life perfectly, never once caring about the chaos happening on Ryan's end. Ryan kept checking his watch, pacing back and forth anxiously. It was almost 8 a.m. "Why isn't Rachel here yet?" he muttered to himself. "Director Gao is arriving in a few days. I've got to make a good impression." He remembered clearly how hard things had been when he first worked under Director Gao in his past life. 3 years later, when Rachel's tailoring skills happened to match Gao's personal taste, things finally turned around. This time, Ryan had brought Rachel in early, much earlier than in their last life, hoping to win favor through her. If everything went as planned, he'd gain a powerful connection ahead of schedule. Thinking about Rachel made Ryan grin foolishly. She was just as loyal and devoted as she'd been before. That worked perfectly for him. He had always planned to let her suffer a little first, let her taste some hardship and shame. Then he'd marry her anyway. After all, she had treated him with complete devotion in their past life. His mom and little sister had adored her. She even gave him a son who was outstanding and had the exact same personality as him. This time, Tangaroo had also given birth to a son. But unfortunately, the child looked nothing like him. The thought made Ryan miss his past life even more. He wasn't sure if he missed his son or the high status he used to enjoy. Getting a second chance to make up for past regrets felt amazing, but everything had to start from scratch. Right now, he was just a low-level official with a bit of cash. He was still miles away from the status he'd once had, but it was fine. Rachel was about to arrive. She would help him win over Director Gao. Once he sold his apartment in Northville, he'd have the capital to start fresh. With money and experience, he was confident he'd be back on top in less than 10 years. As for the rumors from his mom and sister that Rachel had already married someone else, he didn't believe them for a second. Obviously, the Zhang family had staged it to save face after he ran out on the wedding. Who could blame them? One thing he was sure of. The Rachel from his past life was the kind of woman who, once she gave her heart to someone, would love them with unwavering loyalty. That was why, even after being reborn, Ryan would rather keep Tengu as a mistress and still marry Rachel. There was simply no better wife than Rachel. Across from me, Tanguru smiled sweetly and offered, "Miss Zhang, try this coffee. It's made from Brazilian beans, freshly ground by hand. It's really smooth." I was exhausted by the whole thing. I had no idea what these two were trying to pull. I had just gone out to buy a few household items, and somehow Tang Yiru had intercepted me. What were the odds? She took a sip of coffee, hesitated, then looked at me with forced gentleness. "Rachel, I've been waiting for you here for days. When you didn't come to the house last time, I figured maybe you lost the business card. So I came back here to wait, and I actually ran into you." She smiled as if nothing had happened. "Ryan and I have a child now. He's 4 years old. When you have time, come over and visit, okay? What happened in the past was our fault, but love itself isn't wrong. We really hope you can give us your blessing." So that's what this was. Tang Yiru trying to blur the lines around timing and make me believe she'd gotten pregnant by Ryan after marrying him. She didn't know that. Just yesterday, Ryan had come to me all smug and self-righteous, saying I should still marry into the Carter family and not give Iru a hard time. He told me, "Iru cares so much about your happiness that she was willing to abort the child for your sake. I can't let her suffer. So Rachel, you'll be the main wife, And Iru will be the secondary one. Her child will call you mom, too. That's normal around here. Any successful man has multiple women. I just hope you two can get along. I'd always known those two were delusional, but I never expected them to be this far gone. Right then their son, who had been quietly eating cake next to us, suddenly began breathing heavily and collapsed. My instincts as a doctor kicked in instantly, and I rushed to help. The child was clearly suffering from an allergic reaction. His throat swelling rapidly, his epiglottis and airway were closing. He needed to get to the hospital immediately. Panicked and focused, I didn't hesitate. Just moments ago, Tangiru had been sitting there, composed and elegant. Now, she collapsed into Ryan's arms like a tearful damsel, delicate and panicked. Ryan, save our son. I just wanted to let him meet Miss John a little early. How was I supposed to know Rachel would intentionally give him mangoes? I clearly told her over and over that Coco is allergic to mangoes. Ryan's expression turned furious. The way he glared at me, I could practically see him imagining me torn to pieces. He charged at me without a word, hand raised to slap me. But before his hand reached me, I caught his wrist and pressed hard on a pressure point. His face turned ghostly pale from the pain. Sweat poured from his forehead. You think this is a joke? You have no idea what med students go through. During training, our professors expected us to be strong enough to carry a bull on our backs. Rachel Jiang, you hurt a child. You're despicable, Ryan spat. How did I not see you were this vicious before? You need to be taught a lesson. If that. I should have stayed away from you longer. Shut up. I finally snapped. Get that child to a hospital now. While the doctors were still performing emergency treatment, I hadn't even had time to step out before Tangiru grabbed my sleeve, weeping, demanding an explanation. Not long after, Ryan's mother and sister barged in. Oh, my sweet little grandson, his grandma cried. This is killing me. His sister, Amanda Carter, glared at me, seething with hatred. Ryan held Tangiru gently in his arms, whispering softly to comfort her. Yuru looked up at me through tear-filled lashes, then buried herself deeper into his embrace. Ryan's face turned cold. Apologize to Rachel right now, he ordered. I had no patience for this circus. I stood up to leave, but Ryan grabbed my arm. As we struggled, a puzzled voice came from behind me. Dr. Jiang, what are you doing here? The department's waiting for you. We've got a meeting. I turned around to see several interns, including a young one named Yang, walking up. I quickly waved them over. Please help separate these lunatics from the Carter family, I said calmly, using the chance to free myself and walk out. Behind me, Ryan's confused voice echoed. Wait, did you just call her Dr. Jiang? The interns looked proud. Yeah, Dr. Jiang's just been transferred to our hospital, top graduate from Northville Medical. She was Professor Chang's favorite student. That evening, just after my shift, I walked out of the hospital and saw Ryan waiting by the entrance. Rachel Jiang, you've been reborn too, haven't you? I wasn't surprised by how sure Ryan sounded. In our past life, while hiking with a mentor named Dr. Gao, I had accidentally scraped my ankle on a sharp rock. A young female doctor had treated the wound, and the graceful precision of her hands while stitching mesmerized me. For months afterward, I practiced those same motions at home. It turns out that beyond tailoring, a simple needle could open up a whole new world for me. Ryan had always scoffed at my passion. If you can become a doctor, pigs can climb trees. I looked at him with cold disdain. Well, I did become a doctor. Tell me, Mr. Carter, are the pigs in your house climbing trees now? His face flushed. Then, as always, he defaulted to blame. You've clearly been reborn for a while. Why didn't you come find me? He demanded. You knew I was about to meet Dr. Gao. You knew she only liked your clothing designs. You wanted to watch me struggle, didn't you? You wanted me to beg. Don't lie. I'm doing all of this for our future. Don't you want to go back to the kind of elite life we had before? Quit your job at the hospital. Start sewing again. Help me rebuild everything. You're a doctor now. You should know how to take care of the elderly. You can look after my mom too. I'd had it. That self-righteous expression of his disgusted me. In our past life, I already knew he was the type to take advantage of others when they were down, but I hadn't realized just how delusional and entitled he really was. As colleagues began to exit the hospital in small groups, several of them gave curious glances toward us at the gate. Ryan, ever smug, tried to reach for my hand with confidence. I slapped his hand away coldly. Take one more step and I'll call security. This is a military hospital. The guards here, one of them could take down 3 of you. And stop flattering yourself. I'm already married. Ryan froze. That's impossible, he said blankly. It doesn't count. You couldn't have married anyone but me. You married me. That marriage is mine. I have the right. I'm her legally recognized spouse under national marriage law. Who do you think you are to question that? I turned around surprised, and there was Sterling striding toward me in long, confident steps. He grabbed my hand and laced our fingers together, completely ignoring the fact that we were surrounded by people. I didn't care either. I was just happy. I thought you said you weren't coming back until tomorrow, I said, smiling. He lowered his head, his voice soft. I missed you. I rushed back overnight. Behind us, Ryan Carter was still chasing after me like a madman. But Sterling's security detail intercepted him and held him back at a distance. I could still hear Ryan screaming at the top of his lungs. Rachel Jang, you can only marry me. You belong to me. Sterling rubbed my fingers gently and sneered. What a delusion. He really thought a short break would make this feel like a honeymoon. Every time that man returned from a mission, I felt like I was risking my medical degree by being in bed with him for so long. If I die from exhaustion, I once told him, it'll be the most embarrassing cause of death for a med student. Sterling would always pull the blanket over me and say in that lazy drawl, sweetheart, you're overthinking it. Your old professor back in NT said you were the toughest student he ever trained. You're built like a tank. 2 months later, I volunteered to transfer to a satellite division for advanced teaching. By the time I returned to Shenzhen, it was already deep autumn. My colleagues told me that while I'd been away, a strange man had been standing outside the hospital every day, rain or shine, watching the entrance and exit of every shift. Intern Young described it with theatrical flair. At first, security thought he was some kind of stalker, but he just stood there like an idiot, like he was waiting for someone. Eventually, they stopped bothering him. Dr. Jang, you should have seen it, he added. The guy is not badly looking, but he cries like a baby out of nowhere. Creepy. Right after Young finished gossiping the next day, I ran into Ryan Carter, waiting for me again at the hospital gate. Seeing the tense looks from the guards, I raised a hand to calm them. Rachel, he said quickly, afraid I'd have him thrown out. I was wrong. I was too arrogant. I realize it now. Please come back to me. He was crying as he begged. We were married in our past life for so long. We even had a son together. You should marry me. We even picked up the marriage certificate. I don't care that you left him. I'll take you back. I'll marry you. I looked at him calm, but done with his nonsense. Ryan, when you ran from our wedding, I was relieved. When I came back to this life, my biggest fear was that I'd already married you. The moment you bailed, I went straight to the city and withdrew our marriage application. Ryan froze, utterly stunned. I continued. I've been married to my husband for years. We have a wonderful daughter. She's sweet and clever. She doesn't have to play mediator between her dad and grandma. She's loved completely by our whole family. Thinking back on our past life, Ryan tried to smile, but it twisted awkwardly on his face. Rachel, he said with red eyes. I admit I was wrong. I only wanted to cool things down for a few years. I never meant to lose you. I wrote you a letter every year, but I just found out Iru was secretly taking them. See, it wasn't my fault. Please just give me another chance. Think about our son. He was just like me. So smart. Please, Rachel, I was wrong. His begging disgusted me. But I thought of my promise to Sterling. If I didn't keep my cool, Sterling had once told me he'd rather take the disciplinary punishment and personally eliminate that clingy pest. So instead, I calmly laid everything out. Ryan, the truth is, you just can't let go of what I bring to the table. I could manage your home and build your professional network. You only realized your perfect dream girl wasn't so perfect after all, and that no one made a better wife than Rachel Jiang. And that son you keep mentioning, the one who looked exactly like you, I'm glad I don't feel anything for him now. He was just like you, selfish, cold, always demanding the world bend for him. Whether you admit your mistakes or not makes no difference to me. In our past life, I fulfilled every duty as a wife, a mother, and a daughter-in-law. Marrying into the Carter family was the most revolting mistake of my life. You have no idea how many days and nights I spent drowning in regret. By the end, even seeing your face made me sick. And that includes right now. It seemed like Ryan couldn't take any more. His face twisted in disbelief as he collapsed to the ground, mumbling to himself, "How could this happen?" I turned away from him in disgust, not sparing even one more glance. "Ryan Carter, don't ever appear in my life again. You wouldn't want to know how my husband handles his enemies." After that day, Ryan and his entire family disappeared completely from my world. Sterling, jealous as ever, asked, "So what? You actually felt bad about me roughing him up?" I rolled my eyes. "Idiot. He's not even worth one strand of your hair. Sacrificing your future over someone like him would be beyond foolish." Easily placated, he turned soft and smug like a lion being scratched in just the right spot. Much later, I still made a point to befriend Director Gao, not to offer her handmade clothes this time. Of course, in our past life, she suffered from severe asthma and almost died during a business trip. I gently reminded her about a few medical precautions, and she was deeply touched, grateful beyond words. During one of our casual chats, she shared a story that made me smile. A few years back, she'd had a subordinate who was obsessed with giving her flashy, high-fashion outfits, no matter the occasion. They were loud, overly trendy, and completely missed her taste. She grew so annoyed that she finally transferred him far away from the central departments, just to get some peace. Later, she heard that the same subordinate tried his hand at business. Since Shenhe was one of the first cities to open up during the reforms, that kind of ambition wasn't unusual. But he had used loan sharks to fund his investments, and every project he backed flopped. No one trusted him, and eventually he lost everything. Then his mistress ran off, leaving behind a letter. She took their son and disappeared. In the letter, she confessed that the boy wasn't his. He was the result of a youthful romance with her first love. Now that the biological father had returned, she realized that he was the one she'd always truly loved. She thanked the man for his kindness, for accepting her so generously in the past. She hoped he'd understand why she had taken the remaining money when she left. After all, she still had a child to raise. The boy had once called him Dad. His elderly mother, who had doted on the grandson for years, suffered a stroke upon learning the truth and passed away shortly after. The man, shattered, sat by the surging riverside, clutching those letters. No one ever saw him again. I listened, then forgot about it, the same way you forget a story you overheard on a bus. These past few years, Sterling missed our daughter terribly. Every winter and summer break, he tried to coax her into staying a few extra days in Shenzhen. Our parents weren't thrilled about the constant back-and-forth competition for affection. At one point, I quietly suggested that maybe we should have another child. Sterling pulled me into a hug and smiled. "We made a deal, remember? Just one child. Boy or girl, it doesn't matter. One is enough. They'll have all of our love." He kissed the top of my head. "Rachel, besides you, I can only love one more person. Any more than that, and I wouldn't know how to split my heart." And so we grew old together. He defended the nation. I saved lives. When Sterling passed away at 82, surrounded by children and grandchildren, he was lying peacefully in my arms. As I packed away his belongings, I found our wedding photo tucked into one of his cherished books. We looked so young then, leaning into each other, sweet, a little shy, and completely in love. On the back of the photo, in bold, deeply pressed ink, were the words, "Rachel, my eternal love."